Hello, my dear student. Welcome to another edition of your mathematics lesson. Today, in continuation with your main topic, that is arithmetic of finance. What we are going to discuss today is depreciation. So let's begin. After completing the very lesson today, my dear student, you'll be able to explain the term depreciation. And number two, you also be able to solve problems involving depreciation. These are the two things I hope, my dear student, you'll be able to do after completing the very lesson today. So as usual in your favorite segment of the lesson, today I'll give you another special group of numbers. This group of numbers are called amicable numbers. I will explain what are amicable numbers and give you examples of amicable numbers after completing the lesson today, so don't go away. To begin the lesson, my dear student, let me just explain some few concepts as far as depreciation is concerned. So starting with the definition of the depreciation, that is the meaning. Depreciation simply refers to the loss in value of an item over a period of time. Some items, particularly electronics, usually lose value due to age. So that concept of losing value of an item due to age is what we call the depreciation. The antonym of depreciation is now called appreciation. That is the opposite of depreciation is now appreciation. And if that is the case, it means appreciation will now be the increase in value of an item due to time. Another thing you have to take note here is says depreciation is usually calculated as a percentage of the current value of the item. That is the value at the beginning of the year. So it's usually calculated as percentage, which the percentage will be given in the question. And the depreciation is calculated year by year, and is calculated using this very formula. That is the amount of depreciation would now be equals to depreciation rate, which we said is usually in percentage multiplied by the value of that very item at the beginning of the year that you want to find the amount of depreciation. So this formula gives you the amount of depreciation, that is the actual loss in value. And after losing the value, the item, it is new value will now be given by this very formula, and that new value will now be the beginning value minus the amount of depreciation. Amount you have in this very formula, when you subtract it from the value at the beginning of that very year, it will give you the new value ending that very year. This is what we shall be using. So we are going to make use of this to find either the amount of depreciations or the new value after some period of time. So let's just move and take example. Example number one, it says a motorcycle costed 300,000 naira, and that motorcycle depreciates by 25% in the very first year and 20% in the subsequent years. The question asked is to find the value of this motorcycle after 2 years. Solution to this very problem. So we have the rate of depreciation, which is 25% at the very first year. But in other years to come, the rate differ with that of the very first year. Other years to come, the depreciation rate is 20%. So let me just start answering this question. So what I'm going to do is says the value ending first year, because the concept says the depreciation will now be calculated year by year, even if this percentage of depreciation is the same. We have to do it year by year. This is what we have explained so far. So let me just get the value of this motorcycle ending first year. It is value ending first year would now be, it is a value beginning that very first year minus the depreciation in that very first year. So beginning value is now this 300,000. And it is depreciation is what we are now going to calculate, 25% of this 300. Let me just move. So if I now substitute my beginning value 300,000 naira minus 25% of the beginning value, that is 300,000 naira. This side will now give me the amount of depreciation. So let me just find what is 25% of 300,000 naira. If that is now done correctly, you now have 75,000 naira. So the motorcycle in the very first year, it will lose the value by this amount, 75,000 naira. So subtracting 75,000 naira from 300,000 naira will give the new value of that motorcycle after or ending first year. That is now going to be 225,000 naira. This will now be the new value just after 1 year. But the question says we have to find its value after 2 years, so I have to move. So I'll now get the value after second year. That value after second year, I will now use this 225,000 as the value beginning that second year, then minus the depreciation that it will occur in that second year. Let me just substitute. So I'm going to have new value, that is the value beginning that second year, minus the depreciation that will occur in that second year. So let me substitute. New value will now be equals to 225,000. That is the value beginning second year minus 20% of that value beginning second year, which is 225,000. You can see the rate is now 20% because in the question it says after first year, other years to come is now 20% depreciation rate. So I now have 20% of this 225,000. So if I calculated this 20% of this amount correctly, I'm going to have 45,000 naira. And subtracting 45,000 naira from this 225,000 would now give me the new value of that motorcycle ending second year. That is after 2 years. Let me subtract. Subtracting, if done correctly, you now have 180,000 naira. This will now be the value of the motorcycle after just 2 years. If we are asked to find the value after 3 years, then you have to continue. We'll do it year by year. With this, I have come to the end of this very lesson, my dear student. I hope you find it resourceful. And let me just move quickly to the last segment. Maths is fun, and explain what are amicable numbers. Amicable numbers are two numbers that what happened to the two numbers. The sum of the proof factors of the very first number will give you the second number. And also the second number, if you are to find it is proper factors, if you added the result, it will be exactly the same thing as the first number. So those two numbers are called amicable numbers. Let's just take examples of amicable numbers. I have 220 and 284. These two are amicable numbers. So based on this definition, if I have to find the sum of the proper factors of 220, what I expected to get is 284. And if I now find the sum of the proper factors of 284, what I expected to get is 220. So proper factors of 220 will now be this numbers 1, 2, 4, 5 up to this 110. These are the proper factors of 220. So if I now add these proper factors, what I expected to get is 284. Let me do that. So some of those proper factors, if you do this correctly, with your calculator, you now have 284. You can see some of the proper factors of 220 gives you the other number. So let me move and take this 284, find it is proper factors. The proper factors of 284 will now be, these are the proper factors, 1, 2, 4, 71, and 142. If I add those proper factors, what I expected to get is the other number 220. And addition of this, if you do it correctly, this is what you have 220, which means the sum of the proper factors of 220 is now 284, and sum of the proper factors of 284 is now 220, which means 220 and 284 will now be amicable numbers. Amicable numbers, it says, are numbers that love each other so much. So other examples of amicable numbers include the 1184, 1210. These pairs are amicable. Another pair that is amicable is 2620 and 2924 are amicable. Another pair that are amicable is 5020 and 5564. You can test and see whether these numbers are amicable or not. Thank you for your attention. We see more of these things in mathematics in our subsequent lessons.